It's Fans Corner. Welcome to it, and thank you so much for making time for us. We are now shifting our focus to the CAF Champions League, the quarterfinals of the CAF Champions League, and we've just watched Mamelodi Sundowns against Esperance des Tunis of Tunisia out at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium, and that game ending 1-0 in favor of Mamelodi Sundowns. A very important victory for Sundowns in this first leg of this quarterfinal. This is the beginning of the quarterfinals. There are other games that are going to take place later on in the quarterfinals. The other 3 games are going to take place at night. Firstly, let me appreciate the fans, the South African fans who made time to go to the stadium, given that the game played in the middle of the week and in the afternoon. Okay, it's not a usual time slot that we see in South Africa, where games are played during the day on a weekday. But the fans that made time to go to the stadium, shout out to you. I know there's a lot of banter that takes place. We hear a lot of people making fun. We can make fun all we want, but we also have to appreciate the fact that there are fans who made time to go to the stadium, especially given the time of the game. It also helps that it's right at the beginning of a new month. The month end was just yesterday, so yeah, there are people with that disposable income. I know there are people who make fun of Sundowns giving away free tickets, but guys, if we are to be honest, we'll talk about the game. If we are to be honest, in South Africa, it's not ticket prices, and I don't think ticket prices are that much of an issue. Okay, even if Sundowns give away those free tickets, the challenge in South Africa still remains how to get to the stadium, the logistics, the public transport, and the likes. South Africa has different types of challenges when it comes to getting fans into the stadiums, when it comes to football in particular, given the nature of the average football supporter. Can't compare us to the rugby supporters, who have, most of them are from a different economic background, who have lots of disposable income. So in our case, I think it's not necessarily about the ticket prices alone. It also has to do with the way we get to the stadium. It costs a lot to go to the stadium for the average South African football supporter. So I'll give credit to the supporters who went to the stadium. Yes, it was not a packed stadium, but a great incentive for Mamelodi Sundowns to give away tickets where they can, to make sure that supporters go to the stadium. It also has helped the brand Mamelodi Sundowns, actually, if we think about it. Otherwise, let's get into the game itself. We saw Sundowns winning by a solitary goal, a goal scored in the second half by Peter Shalulile, a beautiful cross coming from Lucas Ribeiro, Jaden Adams heading it down to Peter Shalulile to slot it in, and that's Mamelodi Sundowns winning that game by 1-0. But I have to say, I was worried with the way Sundowns played in the first half. They played well. There was nothing wrong with it. I just felt like they were too desperate. You know, when you are too desperate, and it shows that you are too desperate to get a goal or to win the game. In the first half, they were way too desperate. At the same time, Esperance were very, very, very defensively minded. Esperance came into this game with two plans, plan A and plan B. Let's do this and let's do that. If this doesn't work, we'll do that. Or we can get both. Okay. One, they said we're going there to get a clean sheet. We don't want to concede a goal. That was their primary plan A, to keep a clean sheet at Loftus Stadium. That's number one. If that doesn't happen, or we get a chance, let's get an away goal. Okay, that was their plan. That's why we saw Esperance starting to play after they conceded the goal, because they realized that, okay, now the clean sheet is no longer possible. Let's go for plan B. Let's go get an away goal, because in CAF the away goal rule is still in place, and it's an important one, which that's why you saw them trying to play even more after they conceded a goal. So I feel that that also robbed themselves by so doing, because when they started going to Sundowns and taking Sundowns heads on, they started looking like they could get a goal. There were possibilities of them getting a goal. There were chances that they created, and I feel that had they explored that option of trying to get a goal even earlier on in the first half, they could have actually done that. Yes, at the risk of opening themselves up at the back, which would have allowed Sundowns to come and score. So I think yes, it was their game plan. We can't judge them for that, but I feel that they are much stronger going forward if they wanted to go forward. And I was looking at their results in all other games that they've played. They are a very strong team. This is not a push-away team. So it's still going to be a difficult game out in Tunisia next week, but I feel like Sundowns have an advantage here because one, Sundowns, remember, they don't have to win the second leg to go through to the semi-finals. All they have to do, they could go there and get a draw and they qualify for the semi-finals, or they could even lose the game by a solitary goal, by one. If they lose by a one goal margin and they have scored, then that means they have an away goal, or they have away goals if they score more than one away goal. If they lose 3-2, they qualify. If they lose 2-1, they qualify. So you see, there are many scenarios that favor Mamelodi Sundowns, which makes it more difficult for Esperance to qualify. And I can tell you now, in as much when they go to Tunisia next week, Esperance definitely are not going to sit back. And Sundowns, if you don't sit back and you come at them, you also expose yourselves and you become vulnerable at the back. You allow them to come for you as well. So I think the second leg, with the current score the way it is, it suits Sundowns more than it suits Esperance. We've seen these kinds of situations before where a team needs to score a goal and then they go all out, and when they go all out they concede. Now they are two. So once Sundowns score one goal out in Tunisia, then it means Esperance will now have to score three goals in order to qualify, with the hope that Sundowns won't reply if they score. Okay, so they just, I think it's advantage Mamelodi Sundowns right now. It's more of an advantage to Mamelodi Sundowns, especially having kept a clean sheet at home, having not conceded that away goal. Had it been a goalless draw, then I think it would be an advantage to Esperance, even though the Sundowns would have had thinking of saying, if we get an away goal, they have to score 2 goals. But I don't think Sundowns play like that. They have that in mind. We see the difference in Mamelodi Sundowns now. They are not the same team that they were a couple of seasons ago in this Champions League. I think in Cardoso, they found a person who has a know-how. Yes, he hasn't won the Champions League yet, but he has that pedigree of coaching Esperance, who have been doing well, even though they have not been winning it under him at the Champions League. But I think with his experience, they might just go a little bit further in this competition this season. Mamelodi Sundowns, they look much better. But what I said earlier on about them looking desperate, Sundowns, I think let's say Sundowns it also has to do with the pressure that they are under to win this tournament. If they were playing a team in the PSL, if they were playing a PSL game today, and that team played the same way as Esperance played in the first half, Sundowns would have won that game in the first half, because then they would have not been under pressure. They would have. They know that eventually we'll get a chance and we'll bury it. But in the Champions League, I think it becomes, when it's too important, you start thinking about it too much. You overthink it, and you find yourself doing things very in a haphazard manner. And we saw that as well, even in the first half, that they were not as composed as they should be in the first half. But otherwise, it was a great game for them, good results for them, and it remains to be seen whether Pirates will also do the same in the game that they're going to play later on in Algeria. We hope they do it. You know what? I'm one of those people who I know it doesn't sound very authentic coming from a Kaizer Chiefs fan. I like it when the South African teams do well in the Champions League. Yes, it would be nice to see Pirates and Sundowns in the semi-final. I actually would like to see them. Like Cardoso also said, it would be nice also to see 2 South African teams in the finals. I know I'll take a lot of stick from my fellow Kaizer Chiefs supporters, but I think it's beyond supporting your local team. I know we end up comparing ourselves with the likes of, in Europe, you'd never hear an Arsenal fan say, I want Chelsea to do well in the Champions League because it's a national thing, because we are not built that way. I think it would be nice. It would do a whole lot of good to South Africa if we see Pirates and Sundowns making it beyond the quarterfinals. Also, looking at the fact that there's a World Cup coming, there are still World Cup qualifiers coming, and there's still a World Cup coming. We might just qualify for the World Cup. We really need to get our players to be more exposed to this international football under very tense environment. So I think this season, if Pirates and Sundowns make it to the finals and we also qualify for the World Cup, it might just benefit us. It might just benefit the country, other than club football. Yes, it will hurt some of us who support other teams, especially us who support Kaizer Chiefs, because that would mean one of the 2 teams are going to now win it for the second time. But it would make a very nice one. It would make a very, very, very interesting one if the two teams were to go beyond this quarterfinal and somehow make it to the final. Otherwise, this has been Fans Corner. Thank you so much for your time. We meet again in the next one. The next video we're going to do is Mamelodi. It's Orlando Pirates actually out in Algeria. We'll see how they do out there. Thank you so much for your time.